back. This is Mr. Cisneros here with another video. In our previous video, we were able to finish up all of the panels for our speaker box. In this video, we're going to be creating an assembly file where we put all of these together. We assemble them. The way we get started on that is by going to New. We go to our English folder, and then instead of making an IPT, we're done making IPTs. We're actually going to make a standard inch IAM, which is an inventor assembly file. So I'm going to click on standard inch IAM, and then I'm going to click on create. You can see over here on the top left, the assemble tab is what we're in, and then over here you'll see that we have a place button. That's how we're going to insert or place our IPTs into this assemble environment. You actually might see, if I click this drop down arrow, you actually might see place from Content Center. Make sure that you hit the drop down arrow and click on place, not place from Content Center. So I'm going to go hit the drop down arrow and click place. When I do that, you'll see that my speaker box is already selected and it's going to show me my IPTs. If yours doesn't do that, just click on the drop down arrow and go to your Google Drive and navigate to your speaker box folder, and I'm going to go ahead and select these IPTs, and I'm going to click just one by one. I'm going to start with the back, open, and you'll see that it's starting to load it up. If I zoom out, you'll see that it's placing this panel here. All I have to do is click to place. Once I do click, you'll see that it is still attached to my cursor. This is our back, which we only need one of. So I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard, or you could also do a right click OK to get rid of that. You don't want to place more than one. Then I'm going to go to place again, and I'm going to click on my front, open. Same thing, I'm going to click, right click, OK. Go to place one more time. Right side, left side, we need two of those. So when I go to open, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to click a second time. I'm going to zoom out so I have a little bit more room, pan over, and I'm going to do place one more time, and I'm going to go to top, bottom, open, click, and click, since we need two of those. I'm going to right click OK to get rid of that. And now what we can do is we can start thinking about how we're going to assemble this. The way that we assemble is by using the Constraint tool here, but first we need to make sure that we ground at least one of these parts. If we don't, then it's going to make things a little bit more difficult when we start constraining and mating these together. The one that I'm going to ground is, I'm going to go ahead and ground my front panel. So the way I do that is I right click it, and then I go to grounded. What this does is it makes it so that it is not able to move in any direction. So we eliminate all of the degrees of freedom that exist within this part. So if I go and try to move this one, for instance, my back panel, I'm able to freely move it in any direction I want. Since I've grounded this front panel, I go and try to click and drag it, it's not going anywhere. So it's very important to do that. Please make sure to ground your front panel. Alright, now let's start constraining these things. Let's start mating them so that they fit together. The way that we're going to do this, we'll start with let's start with the top and bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just drag these right side, left sides kind of away, and then I'm going to bring these a little bit closer, because those are the ones that we're going to work with. And let's go ahead and click on Constraint here. And the type of constraint that we're going to use is a mate constraint. And the mate constraint has two options. We have either mate or flush. So we'll explain how those work in just a second. Let's start by doing a mate. A regular mate allows us to select a surface, such as this edge right here. So this is my top and bottom. I'm going to select this edge surface, and I know that with my speaker box build, that needs to make contact with this surface here. right? So let's do that. I'm going to click on this back surface of this front plate, and you can see now that those two surfaces are mated, right? They're making contact with one another. It's exactly what we need. In order for that to actually be accepted as a mate constraint, we do have to click apply. So go ahead and click apply, and now we can continue to add some more constraints. The next constraint that we could do is actually going to be a flush constraint. So it's still within a mate, but you can see under solution we have mate and we have flush. So if I click on flush, that allows two surfaces to be flush with one another. So this top surface and the top edge of my front panel need to be flush. So I can click on this one, and then I can click on this one, and you can see that it moves it up just a little bit. It's exactly what we want. I'm going to click apply to accept that. And then one more thing is we're going to do one more flush. We're going to click on this edge here, this side edge, and this side edge. Those two surfaces need to be flush, because if I orbit, zoom out a little bit, you can see that this needs to be moved this direction a bit. So I'm going to go to flush. I'm going to zoom in to click on this surface and this surface, and you can see that moves it over. I'm going to zoom out, and that one is now fully constrained. Check this out. I'm going to click apply. I'm going to close out of this window. Now what happens if I try to move this? You can see now that we've fully constrained it, we've fully mated it to the front. We've eliminated the degrees of freedom, and it's fully constrained there. That's exactly what we wanted. We're going to do the exact same thing with the bottom. We're just going to place it on the bottom edge of our front panel. So we're going to do those exact same steps. I'm going to go to constrain. We're going to start with a mate. I'm going to click on, since this is, let me orbit so we can see this a little bit better. And this is our bottom. So I'm going to zoom in on this surface, this thin edge surface. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to orbit. The way I orbit here is by holding down shift and clicking down on my roller wheel and moving my mouse. You could also use the navigation button right here for orbit. That works the same way. So I've clicked on this thin edge here, and I want that to be mated with this back face. So I'm going to click on this back face of the front panel, and you can see it's snapped it on over there. I'm going to click apply. I'm going to add a flush constraint. This edge needs to be flush with this edge. There we go. Apply. I'm going to orbit to the bottom, and I'm going to do another flush, this surface with this surface. There we go. Now it's starting to form. You can see that it's starting to form the speaker box. I'm going to click apply. Remember, click apply or else that mate will not be accepted. I'm going to close out this window. I'm going to zoom out, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring these a little bit closer to each other now that we're almost done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my right side and left side. So we're going to go to constraint again, and now we can start thinking. We can start thinking about, okay, what needs to be, making contact, what surface needs to be making contact with what surface. So I'm going to go with a regular mate. I'm going to select this right here, and then I'm going to orbit over, and I'm going to say, okay, that needs to make contact with this, similar to how we did the top and bottom. All right, click apply, and now we can start thinking, okay, well, that obviously needs to be moved up. What's the best way to do that? What if we do a flush? What if we click on flush? You could do this a couple of different ways, but flush, what if this surface, we know that this surface needs to be flush with this surface right here. And see how it shifts over? You want to make sure you're clicking on the right one. So I'm going to zoom in to get a better view of this, and now I for sure know this is what I'm going to be clicking. That's what needs to be flush with the right side, left side. I'm going to click on that, and you can see it snaps, it accepts it, you hear that noise. I'm going to click apply. And now the last thing, to move it up, I can say, okay, how about a regular mate? And I'm going to click on this surface. I'm going to orbit. Let me zoom out and orbit. That needs to be making contact with this surface right here. That's going to move it up. I'm going to click apply. I'll close this window out. Let's see what happens if I try to move that right side, left side part. That is going nowhere. We've eliminated those degrees of freedom. We can move on to the next one. Alright, so we're going to do those exact same steps. We're going to go to Constraint. I'm going to click on this surface. I'm going to orbit. And now we can see the other side of the box. That needs to make contact with this surface. There it is. Apply. Alright, let's do that flush again. So this surface, and let's zoom in. This surface need to be flush with one another. Okay, did that. And then we just need to move it up. I'm going to make sure I click apply. And then I'm going to do a regular mate with this surface. And I'm going to orbit, and click on this one. That moves it up. Apply. Close the box. Try to move this right side, left side. You can see we've eliminated the degrees of freedom there. And we are almost done. Last thing is to put this panel on the back here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Constraint. We're going to select, let's see, this surface here. I know that that needs to make contact with the inside of this box. So we're going to click on this inside surface, click there. That brings it in. Very nice. And now what we can do is we can go and do a flush. Make sure I click apply here first. I'm going to go to flush, click this back surface of the back panel, and this back surface of, and it could be any of these really. It could be the right side, it could be the top. As long as you're clicking that back surface of one of these parts, it should work. So I'm going to just click on this one here. That should bring it back. I can click apply. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, because now I need to think about what is the last degree of freedom that exists on this part. If I go and click and drag, you can see that it does have 1 degree of freedom left. It is able to move up and down on that y-axis. So how do I eliminate that? How do I make it so that it is stuck? It's fully constrained. Well, I can go to Constraint, I can go to Mate, I can zoom in. This surface here I know needs to be making contact with this surface here. There it is. Apply, close. I'm going to zoom out, and we can see that we've fully assembled our speaker box. Alright, that is it for this one. Let's go ahead and save. File, save as. This is the first time we're saving this. We don't want to leave it as the name assembly 3. Nope, we want to save this and give it a name and make sure it's located in the right spot. So file, save as. What we're going to do now is going to save it in our speaker box. We're going to call this initials _ speaker box. Click save. And there you have it. We'll see you guys in the next one.